G'day everyone, this is Rangadad. Not financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the market. So today I'm just going to go over a couple of the key points. Try and keep it relatively short, but it is the start of a week, so try and get a picture of what might happen for the week. In terms of the title, people may be a bit too bullish. Just because we haven't cleared this sort of bull market support line yet. This is the line for those that are new. So we basically it's held up the market this whole bull run from right at the bottom all the way through. It's got all the bounces that led to new highs came off it, and unfortunately we are still very much below it at the moment. And honestly, if we closed today like this or even down a little bit, it's not going to look great. Mainly because it's starting to look like a bear flag. And we're getting a fair bit of rejection when we actually push higher. I thought this morning we might actually push through here. Now, this move last night, it was it's a decent move after volatility contraction. Like this was just rubbish through here. Bollinger Bands contracting, the linear regression channel contracting. I actually got out of majority of my short there. I just held a little bit of the hedge because I had to sleep and I wasn't sure whether we were going to completely drop or not. Unfortunately, I was asleep through this. That would have been a nice little area to take profit on my long, but that would have been a very happy weekend. As it is, doing okay, but we're still in this sort of contraction area. We haven't really made a decision either way here. There's lots of moving averages still. We're still sort of within these contracted Bollinger Bands. There is a bit of expansion happening at the moment, but at this stage, it actually just looks like liquidity hunting. Leaving this vector candle weak up here is a good sign, and there is a liquidity block down in here that someone's gone massive long, which it looks like that's the target of this current move. I actually suspect, this was the false move. It was quite a quick move. And I suspect just because we haven't really fully reset, we don't have to on these forward backwards EMA oscillators. That that's a pretty negative sign, but what we can do quite often, if it is a consolidation before another move up, you'll see it pull back towards the trend line and then bounce away. So no real read yet there. It's mainly the read for me is coming from, in fact, we're kind of retesting this trend line on total versus stable coins. We really need to push through that. And even then, you're probably going to have some resistance from this downward trend that we've had as well. So that's a key area for me just to get through that. If we do, even if we do break through this, I think there's enough liquidity above. I think there's enough upside potential that we should come up into this area here again, which if we look at it on just Bitcoin itself, is probably going to be the value area low. Maybe not. It might actually just be the top of this channel. So look, we're getting resistance at the 200 EMA on the daily on Bybit as well. It's It's not looking great. The only thing in its favor is momentum is the upside, and we're actually coming off bullish divergence on momentum. So these are the sort of areas where it gets really tough to actually go long on Bitcoin, but it's probably when you should be going long on Bitcoin. The good sign here is we actually have retested the mid band of this channel. That is a good sign, and we've found some buying off that. So where we finish today in 5 hours is going to be important. If we actually close below this mid band, then yeah, that's not going to look great. And momentum will probably actually start to shift back to the downside. Just see where we're at with this channel. So we're actually above this particular channel as well, which essentially the top of this channel is the mid band of the other one. Basically, this has been a very important channel for us though. So if we get back inside that and actually confirm inside that, that wouldn't be great. This was probably actually a retest of the top of that channel, which we haven't really done since we broke out of it. So that's a pretty good sign there, actually. Yeah, there's another point for the bulls. That there. Just given that we've got so many EMAs, we've got the 800 on the 15, the 200 and the 50, all within this area. That's we need to break out of this somehow and retest just to prove which way we're going. If you look at it on the higher time frames, it looks like a bear flag. If you look at it on 15-minute time frame, this could actually be a potential for a pennant, which would be a bullish pennant. Basically, got it. It's too early to call that that's an uptrend, or whether it's actually something should look more like this. Bit too early to call. Just know that this is likely some sort of consolidation before we make the next decent move. I'm a little disappointed it didn't sort of close above these levels as well. That concerns me a bit. But consolidation before a bit of a breakout either way would see the linear regression channel and the Bollinger Bands expand, and that's kind of what you want on the next move. But realistically, we haven't really gone anywhere this weekend, so that's why I didn't come on do a live after the close on my Saturday morning. It was petering off, and I didn't expect too much movement over the weekend, so yeah, that's a good retest. We'll see if we can get continuation of the upside. At the moment, it needs to actually bounce reasonably soon. We need to find some support around these EMAs. So Asia could actually be the mover this, like today. It could set the scene for the rest of the day, but the reason why I sort of questioned whether we're too bullish or not is just it was a really strong bounce on stocks. So the Qs has a gap down now. NASDAQ, not as big a gap, but big moves to the upside, 2.4% up. You don't normally get a move like that without some sort of retrace as well. Not a vector candle though, so that's also interesting. I mean, they are really quite good levels for a bounce, and that's kind of what concerns me a little bit as well. is it too obvious? Now, commodity trade advisors, they are out. They were basically completely out of the market only Thursday. I haven't seen the stats on Friday, but you know, maybe they've piled back in. I am not necessarily suggesting that is the case at the moment, but this is an obvious area for a bounce. I think it will get one. I just don't know how big it'll be. I think like equal weight cues bounce back up into this area would get some vector candle recovery. I don't know that we're going to get back up here, but we'll have to wait and see. If we do, I think it'll be a bit of a grind because there is so much negativity. There were so many puts in the system. A quick move would wipe out a lot of short sellers, but yeah, still a pretty reasonable target to actually just grind back up into here over the next month or so. That would make a bit of sense to me. Be nice to close above that trend line as well on S&P 500 minis. I mean, generally good closures on all this, equal weight, getting back above that support line and the trend line. It does look positive. I think it's probably going to pull back and retest these levels. I have to wait and see what today brings, but there's still big money is still not necessarily going all in on this. The Russell looking better, but again, it's got a long way to go before we'd be comfortable that it's making its way up. XLI just recovered the bottom of that channel. XLY, XLP didn't quite look as positive as the rest of the market, and that's a little bit of a concern. Again, I think this will probably follow. Momentum's in a good place on it. We'll wait and see. If that rejects off this horizontal line or off this trend line, then that's not going to be a great thing, but we'll wait and see. XLP versus SPY is pulling back into a retest of this level. So I do expect at least this week we'll get a retest of this. If we break back below that, I think that will lead to or that'll be suggesting we're going on a bigger bounce, which will be good. But for the time being, it hasn't really confirmed that this is a proper bounce yet. I'd like to see that closing below this trend line and staying there, confirming with either a couple of candle closes below or a retest and a move back down. So that's this is a key one for me to really confirm that we're actually bouncing. Equal weight XLY, XLP. Again, not a bad level for a bounce, but a lot of these things are below the 200 moving average too. So typically that is a point where you can get rejection and get another move down. This is a better close though. So the equal weight XLP versus SPY has closed below that trend line. That to me is probably a better sign that we are going to come back down a little bit. I would expect this to come back down into these vector candles here and find probably another that'll potentially be where the bounce point is, and that'll be the next rejection point for the market. That's my suspicion anyway. Powery. So regional banking, good closure above this little consolidation area or accumulation area, you could call it. Not a bad sign there. Financials, same sort of deal. Again, I kind of expect if we have another green day, we'll probably get a bit of a pullback off, like a rejection off the 50 EMA. So I just want to have a look at the accumulation distribution line. So good bounce on accumulation distribution on Friday. Kind of broken that downward trend really. Again, potentially a little bit of pullback and then a go again. This is a fairly choppy one, but you want to see these moving averages cross back above. Would be like the red back above the white would be handy. Good signs there, not nothing dramatic. Suggesting that we might be in a fake out. Let's go VIX. So the VIX, yeah, pulling back. Decent crush on the VIX. The more important one for me is the skew, and we did get a little bounce on the skew. That skew got hammered last week. And we've had a bounce off a level that has held up the market for this run. Yeah, look, that's suggesting we're going on a decent run to the upside, but that it's not a huge bounce either. So, and can we come lower? Yes, we can. Do we come lower from here? I think that's fairly unlikely. We've actually had a 3 standard deviation move on the S&P 500, which is quite rare. Like these moves in here are only sort of 1.5 to 2% standard deviation moves. Just the speed of this has been quite rare. And the VIX one day has been coming down as well. So again, this is coming off divergence, which would suggest more extended move down, which should see us go on a more extended move up. There will be choppiness though. This is not going to be a straight shot up. Almost guarantee that. DAX, not a bad candle close there on the DAX too. Okay. DAX is stronger than I thought. I thought DAX might actually come back a bit more as the US market turns around and goes up, but having all markets going up at the same time is going to be an interesting one. We haven't actually really seen that too much in the last month. It's been a bit of rotation globally. UK market back above that trend line, showing some strength. Japanese market showing some strength. Again, pretty good level there for a bounce. Bit of a demand level. Pretty sure it'll be a pullback into these. Excuse me, into these moving averages. Potentially up, just touching into 40,000. Yeah. TLT is flat. So bond market is still, I guess, moving into safety a little bit. It's not dumping safety at the moment. So it's, again, I'd expect this to kind of be choppy though, and essentially just an accumulation, getting ready for something more towards the end of the year. High yield junk, it's not a bad closure on high yield junk, back above 200 EMA and back above this trend line. So that's a good sign. Same with LQDIF. I did at this stage here, I did point out it needs to bounce. It needs to get back above that trend line and that support line. And that's what it has done. So Yeah, there's a fair bit of room to go overhead here. Kind of expect it to want to come back up into this zone here, which should be a good sign for the markets. 2-year yields going up a little bit, so don't necessarily think that. I mean, that's a good candle close above those moving averages. It could move up still. It's going to be a bit of a mixed bag. So yields, I think, could come up while the market's actually coming up. That's typically not what you would get in a strong market, but wait and see. Actually, that is typically what you get in a strong market. Sorry, it's early. Yeah, copper, good break above there. We're just going into vector candle recovery on this though, so it'll be interesting to see if we actually get up here or if we break through this level. Copper was kind of the signal that we were getting close to. Gold, bit of a rejection off this trend line. Yeah, gold could break that trend line. I'd like to see a break and a retest before I got excited about it. Bit of a gap up on the Aussie gold ETF. Silver versus gold, still trending up. It's got a bit of resistance here. I think in fact silver's broken this trend line to the upside. That's showing some strength. The silver could actually go on a bit of a run. It's not. I'd like to see a proper retest this and then bounce off it, and then probably move into it. If it does go on a run, it should be an extended one. You're only going to miss the start a little bit. We'll wait for that confirmation. Dixie. Yeah, Dixie could just sort of consolidate sideways a little bit here, but there are some vector candles here, some pretty juicy looking ones that it might want to go into. Especially if Euro. Excuse me, especially if Euro wants to pull back a bit from here, and there is a vector candle, but it has recovered there and not a lot above. To be honest, this is looking more like Euro might actually weaken again. There is shaping up to be a bit of a liquidity crisis. Potentially sort of a credit crisis as well, but global liquidity isn't really coming with the market at the moment. It's getting into an area where if it bounces, that would be a good bounce, and it has kind of been leading a little bit lately. But yeah, I'd like to see this turn back around to the upside. At the moment, this could actually even be broken in terms of just its correlation with it coming down versus the market. Obviously, it has, but the thing that concerns me is that China's economy is looking like it's on the brink of something nasty. They're throwing stimulus at it, and it's not really going that great. Just the banks have pretty well stopped lending, and yeah, it's not an ideal scenario. So still got that lingering in the background that could just boil away for 6 months until something actually breaks. But realistically, I'd like to see a bounce in this to really confirm that things are going to look a bit healthier. But the markets can move up before this moves up as well. Just be aware of that. Just not seeing the bounce yet. As I said the other day, Aussie market housing prices are moving down a little bit. Nothing changing in terms of credit cards. Home price index in the US is still pulling back. Let's read on December read. Hopefully that gets updated soon. Percentage of stocks above 15 moving average. Going on a bit of a bounce. Was the 200. I should find the ticker for it. I think the number of stocks above the 200 day is actually at quite low levels, which would potentially suggest a bounce level. I thought that would have shown up something. Anyway, I'll find that later, but I think that read is actually at reasonably low levels. We're not super low on percentage of stocks above 50 day yet, so say on a proper big dump later in the year, then we should be 10% level. And Mag 7. Yeah, decent little bounce. I mean, this was a pretty good area for accumulation. Tesla, yeah, showing a bit of strength. Given the size of the move on the market, I'm surprised it didn't go a little bit more, but pretty well everything was up, so it didn't have to do a lot of the heavy lifting. Nvidia would have done a fair bit of that lifting. See how Nvidia goes. That is a strong move. If Nvidia keeps going to the upside, the market should follow. Google, good area. Microsoft, not a bad area. Surprised it didn't sort of tap into this a little bit more, just into this supply zone. Demand zone, sorry. Early Monday morning. Arcade, not a bad level. Kind of a nothing level on Apple though. Apple may pull back a little bit further. Triple M's held up really well through all of this. So, hey, what did they do in earnings? Oh, they've still got earnings. Be interesting if Triple M has a bad earnings. That could signal that there's some nastiness to come. Their Triple M are pretty well in both commercial and residential sort of stuff. Commercial and retail. Meta, and I'd like to see Meta pull back a little bit further. Doesn't have to, but I think that makes sense. Vector candle recovery here didn't fully close this gap, but vector candle recovery on Airbnb might pull back a little bit further. But man, it got slammed after that massive pump. think this is just moving because of the way the market's moving. Like, been a pretty solid business. AMD. That's the other thing. Like this market is really, it's just running on fear at the moment, and it just sort of finally collapsed after the big guys have been selling into retail, and they've pulled out of the market for the time being. Now it looks like they're starting to buy back in. That's kind of what you want, but I have a feeling they're going to buy back in with less and sort of probably sell out a little bit earlier than what they did the first time. Yeah, I mean, there's some strength in these. Not no real confirmation on a lot of them. They're just sort of in a range, but they're not dead. Put it that way. Even the Ford and Stellantis are starting to sort of grind to the upside. Aussie market, good bounce there. Yeah, actually did sell half my position in that the other day. Just looking for this to pull back a little bit further, back into 4.68. I do have an order sitting there to basically buy back in. Aussie one. So these basically bear market ETFs. Yeah, even from here, these will probably sort of chop sideways for and potentially even down a bit if we do get an extended upside run or even chop sideways over the next 6 months. They could also chop. But you look at this, if we do have a massive crash, there's quite a bit of potential in these things to go up. I think that a lot of people are going to actually be flooding into these sort of indexes. So this has only been around since 2015, and there was a little bear market around that time. We were in a pretty choppy area after pulling back a bit, and yeah, so I don't know if we'll go all the way back, but you're talking some pretty significant moves. Don't know if that'll happen, but 27x move would be nice on that particular trade, but we'll see. I'm not sure if there's a ticker similar to that in the US. I'm assuming there is. There's bear market ETFs or short ETFs where you can trade similarly. In the US, where are we? So let's just have a look. Total crypto market cap. And it sort of looks like it's getting rejected at the moment. ETH, BTC. These guys are still going at it. That's just, and ETH is still dropping relative to BTC. People are piling into the longs and the shorts on ETH. So BTC longs, people are still buying the dip here. Interesting level though, whether we'll start seeing these guys sell out. I suspect if we do go up from here, these guys will start taking profit. All right, Ethereum still just, this could be a bear flag. I'm actually looking at it more as accumulation at the moment. I think this is too much of a target, this level up here. Not expected to go into that. This is a pretty highly traded area. Let's just go move this out. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense that we're sort of bouncing here. Big volume area throughout. How long is that going back? That's going back to November 2020. Basically, the breakout on ETH. So I think like good area for accumulation, no doubt. This area here, so around 2300, is probably going to find a fair bit of resistance. I think it could make its way up towards the value area high there from this range that we're in now, from that extended range. Interesting correlation with this trend line. So that's going to be a target for me and a potential rejection. Doesn't have to reject there, but it's going to be a good area to take some profits if ETH does get up there. CME at the moment is actually going to gap down if we're closing around here somewhere. So that wouldn't be the worst thing to leave a gap above on CME. Another retest of the 200 EMA wouldn't surprise me, but there's also a risk here that we actually come down and recover this vector candle a bit more. So I am still wary of that. It's not necessarily this isn't necessarily a chart that you would be super bullish on typically. Momentum is to the upside still, same as with the total crypto market cap, and there is bullish divergence on momentum. But until we really sort of get through this 200 EMA, even sort of closures above the 800 or the 200 on the 4-hour at 88k level should be an interesting level for us, I think. Oh, geez. Oops. So on the daily, it's not looking super great. There is some positive signs there, but we really need to sort of confirm. This could just be a break and a retest of the mid band here, which has been a pretty good support level for this move throughout the whole basically since the all-time high, first all-time high we hit. Yeah, look, closure below that, not great, but we'll see. It's this one here that concerns me. We need to break above this line. Like a proper 2 days down here, if we had 2 negative days, then I'd actually expect it to come back down and retest the bottom of this somewhere. Potentially even back into here, which would look pretty nasty, to be honest. It would. Yeah. I suspect that would require the markets to generally just shit the bed, and we'd be 20-25% down from all-time highs on the rest of the market as well. I think this is just a bit of a fake out rejection, a bit of coiling underneath a key level before we actually push through, but there's no real confirmation of that at the moment. So let's go have a look at the liquidity levels, because it's been a pretty decent swipe of liquidity in the last few hours. Like this guy here was always going to get targeted on a weekend. That's massive for a weekend trade, 40 mil level. 25 here. It's actually bigger than that if we go zoom out a bit. Symbol. So, these levels, 44, 45 mil. Yeah, wipe this one out, 50 mil. A couple other big ones. This one here interests me because it is right in the middle of the wick on this vector candle. So that will potentially be a target. That is a pretty big trade, 67 mil. It's bigger than anything else that's taken out. And we have just come down and swiped this one here as well. So these guys, it is pretty typical. If you see a big order or a big liquidation level like this come into the chart as we're pumping up, it is pretty common for it to come back down and take that. There is some levels below as well, and I think 81 actually has some interesting levels for me. You can see here there is a pretty decent target at 85, a bit over 85 and a half. It looks like it wants to clear out a little bit further down first, maybe. There's a fair bit of liquidity in here. I'm surprised it didn't push higher into that area. That would have been almost a proper retest of the bull market support channel too, or the trend line. Sentiment, as suspected, smart money started to pull back a little bit. Dumb money started to get back into the market. Expect some chop here. I'm not expecting this to be sort of a massive V-shape recovery. Could be wrong, but either way, smart money is going to start probably pulling back a little bit from here. So again, that does suggest we are going on a bit of a bounce. IBIT had some decent trades around the high here, so that's another bit of concern for me there. That was two decent dark pool trades. Same level, 2 minutes apart, exactly the same number of shares. So they just sold $100 million of shares, basically. Sorry, $66 million worth of shares. Right at that level, and then another decent trade for another, basically the same amount in dollar terms, 33.3 million. At the highs again on a regular exchange. So that's not a great sign. We did get a bit of accumulation across the bottom here, so it's not necessarily a sell here, but yeah, not. Excuse me, not getting much of a read on this. This is probably a better read. I do think these guys are buying in with some volume, and Coinbase has held that line pretty well. Today's going to be a crucial day on the market, so yeah, the 2x long Coinbase didn't get a lot of action towards the end of the day, so markets, like the big guys, are still a little bit sitting on the sidelines at the moment, I think. Let's see if anything else that came in on Coinbase. Yeah. Marathon Digital, like this line here does seem to be, there is some action at this level. Whether these guys are buying in or selling out, no real read, but I suspect it's buying in. It's based on everything else. Just have to let Bitcoin choose its direction for us. XLP, decent trade through the bottom there. XLY, same sort of thing. They'll potentially both go up. It's just whether XLY goes quicker than XLP at the moment. Interesting one on technology sector. So there was a bit of buying along the bottom here. Could be a little bit of take profit at the end of the day there. Just some protection for the weekend. But generally, that's a pretty good run after a bit of accumulation around the bottom. XLV looks like a bit of accumulation here now as well. Did pull back a fair bit over the week. And XLU. So XLU is an interesting one. There is still some flow into defensives. Financial sector, good accumulation there by the look of it. Bit of a move up. Already done XLB. So, oh wow, that got a bit of a sell off there. That's an interesting week to the downside. I'll have a look at that on the charts in a sec. Not much in terms of bottoming signal here. That was a decent signal there, I guess, and this could be the secondary bottoming signal that we typically get when we're finding a bottom, but it's hard to tell on low liquidity as well. The best sign for me is the aggregated spot volume, cumulative volume delta. That is still trending to the upside. So even on these little dips, the pullbacks on CBD on spot aren't as high. So to me, this has been an accumulation area for a lot of the spot holders or spot traders. So I think that's not a bad sign. Like, it's just a matter of how far we pull back. Not a lot of action over the weekend on the bid-ask delta, but at the moment it looks like they are hitting the ask. So bad thing. Open interest is down a little bit, but I'm actually not leaning as much on open interest at the moment. Been a pain in the ass. It's not. I think once there's a lot of shorters in the market, it's harder to read. The bid-ask delta kind of gives you a bit of a better read, along with CVDs. So the futures traders cumulative volume delta is a bit all over the shop. It's been pretty flat through this whole area. So yeah, I think the best indication is the spot. If we start making lower lows on spot, then that's probably an indication that we're done for the time being. But this stage is a fair bit of interest here on that wick. I'll just come back here. Interesting. So decent volume too through here. About to close this candle after recovering a lot of that wick. It's going to close red, but I don't want to see these turn around on the next candle if we're going up. It's broken below the hourly Bollinger Bands too. The fact that this wasn't a vector candle, if we do get a bounce and close back inside this hourly Bollinger Band, I'd say that's actually a fake out. That's a liquidity grab to the downside. The low was basically spot on 82,500, which, have a quick look here. surprised they didn't take that level though. 27 mil sitting there. An interesting move. This candle's going to be an important one. This will be the close of the hourly as well. So closure below this Bollinger Band would actually lead me to be a little bit more negative in the short term, especially with the FBE turned down, and same with this reverse EMA turned down and below the trend line. Yeah, that'll be an interesting candle close. In fact, we've left a fair chunk of vector candle here and a vector wick up there, and we tap the top of this channel here. Could pull back a little bit more, but to me, it looks like it wants to put in a higher low here. Quick look on the hourly. 4 hour. 4 hours looking like a pretty big doji at the moment, if not a big rejection candle. I suspect it's going to want to come back up into this vector at some stage. Just a matter of when at this point. It is vector candle recovery as well, I guess. So just surprised it didn't sort of sweep this area. If it is going to come down that hard and bounce. So yeah, looks like continuation of the downsides probably a little bit more likely just in the short term. Maybe a proper retest of this channel, but just be careful because if that comes down harder, then it's potentially not great. Daily candle close will be very interesting today and pretty critical, I think. Need to keep that daily momentum to the upside, and yeah, so momentum needs to stay to the upside, and realistically you want to see Bitcoin itself closing above the middle of this channel. And like this channel is a region, so if like a close here, you couldn't really say either way at that point, but the move from there will probably give you an idea which way it's going. But yeah, can't ignore the fact that this does look like a bear flag at the moment. You also can't ignore the fact that it looks like markets are bouncing at the moment. So yeah, CME gap to the upside would be a good thing. That's kind of the levels I'm looking at for the week though. So, and look, the weekly on CME does look like a pretty decent candle. You got the gap close there. We've actually still got a gap to the upside on the weekly as well. That's not a bad sort of candle on the weekly for just general centralized exchange as well. So I have a feeling that this is decent area for bottom, like a local bottom. There's still a lot of people expecting a little bit lower. Bitcoin loves to turn around before that. The weekly's looking okay. Even the monthly's looking a bit better. I went and sort of had a look through, and on the monthly, it's pretty rare for you to get multiple monthly big red candles unless you're in a proper bear market. Um, so, are we in a bear market? We could be. Just don't know that we go. Do we rip straight to the upside? Probably not. Still a bit to go to close this monthly candle too, so anything could happen. But monthly candles are tricky. They can give you a general direction, but obviously Bitcoin moves so much just on the hourly that the monthly is not necessarily something you could trade on. Even spot holders, I'd be surprised if they traded on the monthly time frame. Yeah, critical area for Bitcoin again. There is some room to the upside, but I'd like to see it in the next day or so actually start to move back up. I want to see this as a retest of the middle of this channel, and then we bounce. Not a bad sign so far on this candle. We're not sort of just flushing. But we'll see. I think it will recover more of this vector. If it's going to go up, I'd like to see it come down here and probably even sweep this low. Again, on volatility, I want to see closures above that 13 EMA, that orange one. At least 2 closures above with a lot of momentum indicators to the upside. That's kind of what I've been using to trade at the moment. It's been working okay. So, all right, that'll do.